and dozens of wildfires and major incidents have been declared across the UK. Firefighters describing it as absolute hell.
Emergency services are assessing the damage here in Wennington, East London, after a number of houses and other buildings were destroyed by fire. We'll have the very latest.
Good morning, everybody. Wednesday, the 20th of July, and our main story is that there have been dozens of wildfires breaking out across England yesterday after those temperatures hit an all-time high in the UK of more than 40 degrees Celsius.
Several fire brigades declared major incidents, with one blaze destroying nearly 10 homes in East London, as David Lumb reports.
When it's as hot as this, even the smallest spark can trigger a huge blaze. Wennington, in the east of London. Flames soon ripping through homes.
It was like a scene from the Blitz, like, you know, or War of the Worlds. It was just windows popping out everywhere, explosions. It was, it was pretty frightening, really, all round, really. But I'm just pleased there was no fatalities.
I was told that I needed to leave, and so I left and went to my local church because we got a community church. But after spending a few minutes in the church, then we realised that the church ground was also on fire, so we were told to evacuate the church.
I was sunbathing in my garden, and then a massive black cloud come across. I looked up, that side of Wennington was on fire, and within an hour it spreads all the way to our house. So we've got a field outside our house that's on fire, all of our cars have gone. And luckily I've now got the animals and the kid out and just waiting for an update on our house.
Yesterday, the UK recorded temperatures over 40 Celsius for the first time. By the afternoon, London Fire Brigade had received more than 1,600 calls for assistance. The Mayor of London said the service was under immense pressure. One London Fire Brigade source told the BBC demand was so high that at one point there wasn't a single fire appliance available to respond to calls because they were already committed. It wasn't just the capital struggling. 14 fire and rescue services declared major incidents, including North and South Yorkshire.
It's really challenging, and the crews have worked really hard, along with our neighbouring brigade who have gave us assistance. We've had a pump from Derbyshire helping out this afternoon, but the crews have worked really hard to bring the incident to a conclusion.
In Dartford, a fire burned fiercely next to the A2. And this was the scene in Milton Keynes, where a fire damaged a nursery and several homes. There are concerns that with the grass dry and temperatures high, conditions for fires remain. People have been urged not to have barbecues or bonfires due to the unprecedented challenges facing crews. David Lumb, BBC News.
Let's go back to our main story now, because we've been reflecting on those intense temperatures that we've seen over the last couple of days. The temperature breaching 40 degrees Celsius in the UK for the first time yesterday, and the result of it, we've seen all these wildfires, haven't we, and house fires.
Yeah, the highest temperature recorded was in Lincolnshire, where thermometers hit 40.3 degrees Celsius. We're going to go live now to the devastation in Wennington.
Gosh.
This is in East London, where we know around 10 properties, possibly more, have been completely gutted by the fire. Last night we heard from some residents who said, yeah, we know it's only stuff, we know we've only lost things, everybody's safe and well, but undoubtedly that is really traumatic, isn't it, for the people who live in those places?
Just look at the damage there. I mean, it's unbelievable, isn't it? We don't know exactly what caused this series of house fires, but we understood that at least 10 properties have been ruined there in Wennington, as well as outbuildings and sheds. We've seen other parts of the country as well. The Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, told us on breakfast earlier that normally the London Fire Brigade gets about 300 calls every day. Yesterday they had 2,000 calls, and look at what they were having to deal with. As the camera comes out there, you can see how it just spread from building to building, home to home.
It just doesn't look real, does it? One representative from the London Fire Brigade said yesterday it was the busiest day for the service since the Second World War. And what's really striking is it wasn't just London, it was Norfolk, Suffolk, Hertfordshire, Buckinghamshire, Nottingham, Yorkshire. Major incidents declared up and down England, Leicestershire as well. So this isn't a one-off in one area.
That's interesting, isn't it? So you're looking there in Wennington, so we saw just to the north of the picture there, we saw those large houses where the damage was. And then coming a little bit south where we are now, another row of houses with problems there as well. And it's the area that it's covered, like the front of the houses themselves, the front gardens, then right down the back gardens and causing damage there. And you've got, I think there were at least 15 fire engines, 100 firefighters called to Wennington alone yesterday lunchtime when this broke out. And they're still there this morning. They're still having to damp down, because that's the problem, isn't it? That in these kind of temperatures, just one small spark, you can get the problems beginning all over again. So they're still there, still spraying down, just trying to make sure that that things improve. But until, I guess, we get rain and prolonged rain, the dangers continue. Sadiq Khan was talking about barbecues and the risk of people throwing cigarettes out their car windows and stuff.
And that's what we're hearing, isn't it? That we are going to have to adapt our behaviour. The ground is so tinder dry, homes are so dry, that it just takes the slightest spark. It could be from a compost bin, it could be from a barbecue, it could be from a cigarette lighter. The slightest spark can cause, literally, a wildfire to spread because there's no moisture.
And Sadiq Khan was saying as well that they don't know what caused these particular fires in Wennington, but he'd heard a suggestion, he said, that maybe the sunlight caught something, maybe a reflection. We've heard in the past, haven't we, about things like mirrors and glass ornaments hanging on windows that then refract the light and can cause just a tiny spark or flame, which then cause, well, you can see the damage. Clearly, there's going to be a massive investigation into this.
And some concern as well. We heard from the Fire Brigades Union that the numbers of firefighters have been cut by 20-odd% since 2010. So some concern, if this is something we see more and more, you know, whether the forces are prepared enough, whether they have the resources to cope with it long term, because, as we heard from the Mayor of London, London resources certainly stretched to their limit yesterday.
Those houses to the right there had a lucky escape, didn't they? Because you've got a run of, what, 6 or 7 properties completely gutted, and then luckily those guys must have been thinking, goodness me, how far is it going to spread? But you see what I mean? It's on one side, and then it's on the other side as well, which is strange, isn't it? The way that the fire has travelled, whether those are just freakishly, you know, similar, you know, sort of coincidental events, you wouldn't imagine so. But,
and a run of terraced houses, weren't there? So obviously between them, the fire is going to spread a lot more easily. I mean, we've been saying it all morning, but the pictures that we're seeing up and down the country, you sort of have to steel yourself and remind yourself that this is the UK. We are not used to conditions like this. We're not used to pictures like this all happening at the same time up and down the country.
And we heard from Tim Stock a bit earlier on breakfast. He lives in one of those houses, and his son Alfie talking about those moments yesterday afternoon when they tried to save what they could and tried to help their neighbours get away, and being so resilient about it, weren't they? Talking about, you know, well, it's only stuff, we're safe, and amazingly no loss of life there. But yeah, it must be heartbreaking then for them to look at those pictures, thinking of you all there in Wennington this morning.
You would imagine they're only just beginning to digest what's happened.